3 Sinister True Hide-and-Seek Tales, discover the terrifying hidden secrets of the cursed game. The laughter of children hung like a veil over the idyllic suburb as Lila pulled into the driveway of an aging home. Fresh off a divorce, she was desperate for a new start with her precious kids, Mia and Jake. But that laughter felt like a bittersweet reminder. She shook away the heavy thoughts and focused on the adventure ahead. Yet, as the doors creaked open, a shiver ran down her spine. The house seemed to exhale, an unsettling chill enveloping her. As they unpacked, Mia and Jake darted outside to join the other kids. Lila's heart thudded uncomfortably in her chest. Dust motes danced in the air, and shadows whispered from the corners. She tried to shake it off. It was just an old house. But when her fingers brushed the wallpaper, a sense of foreboding clung to her like sweat. Later, rummaging through boxes in the musty attic, Jake found an old, weathered board game called Hide and Seek. Its vibrant colors were faded, and a thin layer of dust lay thick over it. "Mom, can we play?" he asked, excitement bubbling. Against her better judgment, Lila nodded. What could go wrong? They sat on the living room floor, the game spread before them. The clock ticked ominously in the background. Each roll of the dice felt heavy, as if the game itself held its breath. The shadows flickered around them, but Lila chuckled it away as her imagination running wild. Then she noticed Mia's face growing pale. "Mom, I heard whispers," she stammered. Lila brushed it off, thinking it was just childhood fantasies. The atmosphere shifted. The cheerful sounds of their new neighborhood faded into an eerie silence. Lila's phone rang, jolting her from her unease. It was a friend. "You've got to be careful," the voice trembled. "There's a dark story behind that game. Kids, they vanished after playing it." Her blood ran cold as dread coiled around her heart. Dismissal echoed in her mind. There's no way this could be true. Yet, the very air felt charged with something sinister. With a shuddering breath, she pressed on, eager to wipe the slate clean for her kids' sake. But when the clock struck midnight, everything turned. In an instant, Jake was gone. Panic crashed over Lila like freezing water. "Jake!" she shouted, her voice cracking, but it hung listlessly in the air. Only ghostly silence echoed back to her. Heart racing, she dashed through the house, tearing open closet doors, peering under beds. Shadows swirled in the corners, mirroring her growing fear. Stumbling outside, the darkness consumed her. The lively neighborhood was now a gloaming shadow realm, every sound amplified unnaturally. Whispers flitted across her ears, wrapping her in a panic-laden fog. Lila trudged through the chilling void, every step a fight against the creeping dread. Her neighbor flashed into view, their eyes narrowed and glinting with something she couldn't quite place. "Looking for someone?" they asked, their voice smooth but tainted with malice. It was enough to send a bolt of ice shooting through her veins. Then she heard Jake's laughter, echoing from the woods. But something deep within screamed at her, was it really him, or was it a trap? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The shadows darkened as she approached the thick, gnarled trees, her heart pounding a furious rhythm. The laughter echoed again, this time mingled with something darker, and dread sunk its teeth deeper into her chest. Here in the heart of the unfamiliar community, Lila faced her worst fear. Would she uncover the truth hiding behind the cheery smiles, or would she lose Jake forever to the cursed game? The night crackled with tension, as if it held its breath, waiting to see what she would do next. Lila stepped into the suffocating darkness of the woods, the laughter twisting ominously on the breeze like a grotesque serenade. She felt the night close in around her, every rustle of leaves a reminder of what was at stake. Frantically, she called out, "Jake! Where are you?" But the only response was that taunting laughter, chilling her to the bone. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back. She hesitated, glancing at the silhouette of her neighbor watching from the safety of their porch. His warped smile lingered in her mind, pulling at her thoughts like a dark thread. Was he involved in Jake's disappearance? Her heart thumped, the very idea spiking her fear. Yet, the laughter pierced through the branches again, cutting through her hesitations. "Stay calm," Lila whispered to herself, trying to solve this puzzle with a clear mind. She pressed deeper into the trees, each step dragging her further into despair. Shadows writhed, and the wind picked up, whispering secrets she couldn't decipher. Was it warning her? Or mocking her? The laughter erupted again, now morphed into a chilling echo that surrounded her. As she navigated the underbrush, she stumbled across a glowing object half buried under twisted roots. Her heart raced as she knelt, brushing dirt away to reveal a small silver locket. It felt impossibly warm in her palm, the cold night air contrasting starkly. She opened it, and inside was a picture of a boy who looked strikingly like Jake. Panic surged through her veins like ice water. What did this mean? "Jake! Please!" Her voice cracked, she could hardly recognize it. Feeling desperate, she placed the locket against her chest as if hoping it would connect her to him. The air thickened, heavy with an otherworldly pressure. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter faded, replaced with a horrific silence. She froze, sensing that something was watching her. Her breath quickened, shallow in her lungs. An instinctive dread flooded her, as if the very trees conspired to keep her from leaving. Then she saw them. Shadows shifting, a thickening cloud of darkness several feet ahead, forming into vague silhouettes. They flickered and twisted, as if caught between two worlds. Lila's heart pounded violently, each beat a desperate plea. "What do you want?" She stammered, fear choking her words. In the silence that followed, the shapes drew nearer, their outlines becoming clearer. Faces began to emerge pale, lifeless, their eyes sunken and hollow. Children, lost and frozen in a moment of terror. Lila's stomach dropped. They looked just like Jake, but their expressions were haunting, as if they were trapped in eternal unrest. Her breath turned shallow. "Jake!" She yelled, but it was drowned out by a sudden rush of wind. The figures recoiled, retreating into darkness, shadows weaving into the night. Then, she heard it again, his sing-song laugh, echoing through the twisted branches. Fueled by fear and love, she sprinted deeper into the forest, following that mocking sound. Each step intensified her conviction but also heightened her danger. What if she was drawing closer to something monstrous? Just ahead, the moonlight broke through the canopy, illuminating an eerie clearing. In its center, a game board lay sprawled open, pieces scattered as if in haste. The sight sent a jolt through her veins. Was this where Jake had vanished? The board glowed faintly, whispering to her a promise? A threat? With no time to lose, Lila leaned down, gripping the game pieces tightly, her pulse racing. "Jake! Please!" The night fell silent again, but she knew she couldn't turn back. Not now, not ever. But just behind her, the laughter faded into a soft sobbing. A voice broke through the air, ethereal and drifting. "Help me, Mommy, I'm hiding." Every hair on Lila's body stood on end as she turned, heart pounding in rhythm with the rising panic. That voice was undeniably Jake's. Just a whisper away, yet the dark branches seemed to shift and close in, blocking her way. Would she reach him before it was too late? Or had she already crossed a line she couldn't return from? At the edge of the clearing, shadows began to writhe again, hungry and restless. And somewhere behind those shadows, she knew the truth awaited, a truth darker and more terrifying than any game they'd ever played. What was waiting for her here? Would she find her son, or would the night swallow her whole? Lila's heart raced as she turned around, searching desperately for the source of Jake's voice. The sobbing floated through the air, thin and sorrowful, wrapping around her like icy tendrils. She clutched the locket tighter, the image of Jake igniting both hope and terror within her. "Jake! I'm coming," she shouted into the blackness, trying to sound brave, though her voice trembled. There was an urgency in her desperation. The sobbing seemed to respond, growing louder, more insistent, but no matter how hard she peered into the thickening shadows, she saw nothing. Then, without warning, the game pieces in her hands began to tremble. The board vibrated, sending a jolt through her body. An eerie glow radiated from its surface, pulsating as if it were alive. Lila dropped to her knees, casting frantic glances around her, scanning the towering trees bending ominously. With every second, the forest felt less like a place of refuge and more like a prison closing in. She skimmed her fingers over the scattered pieces, each one ice-cold, as if they'd just emerged from some dark abyss. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence, hot breath against her ear, sending shivers down her spine. "Play the game." "What game?" she gasped, spinning around. But all she found was darkness, a void that seemed to laugh and leer at her uncertain nature. Reality twisted, and fear consumed her like a wild fever. Just then, everything shifted. The game board vibrated more violently, and a tendril of mist spiraled upward, snapping her attention back to it. The pieces reassembled themselves, forming a crude outline of a star. The ground beneath her felt unstable, as if the very earth were shifting to accommodate shadows that loomed closer. With a staggering heart, Lila reached for a piece, deciding instinctively on the night. As soon as her fingers wrapped around it, a loud crack echoed through the woods. The trees quaked, and the wind howled, frantic and wild. She looked around, her stomach clenching in fear. Then she spotted them, figures emerging from behind the trees, their once vague silhouettes now embodied in nightmarish clarity, eyes hollow and searching. They lifted their arms towards her, frozen in eternal desperation, faces twisting in agony. "Lila, save us!" their voices echoed, a chorus of sorrow and loss. The resonance filled the dark, a haunting melody that crashed against her reality. "Get away!" she shouted, wrenching herself back, but they didn't flinch. Instead, they crept closer, moving in unison, the sound of rustling leaves like nails on a chalkboard. She could almost hear their stories, their pain mingling with her own. Were they like Jake? Trapped forever in this twisted realm of despair? The sobbing intensified, merging with the sickening laughter from before. "Mommy, I can't find you." The mournful voice of Jake sliced through the haze, cutting straight to her heart. "No!" she cried, collapsing onto the ground, the night piece slipping from her grasp and tumbling into the dirt. Panic fueled every breath. "I will find you, I swear. I'll save you." Suddenly, something snagged her ankle, cold and unyielding. Lila yelped, looking down as dark roots spiraled from the earth, snaking around her legs. They pulled her deeper into the ground, the laughter fading but leaving a lingering sense of dread that something far more sinister awaited. "Play the game," the whisper returned, more demanding this time, unrelenting. She struggled, fighting against the roots that tightened as if sensing her defiance. Lila's mind raced. Could playing this game somehow break the cycle of despair? What rules did it hold? But she had no choice. With renewed determination, Lila stood tall, gripping the remnants of courage. She scanned the board again, heart pounding in desperation. With each second lost, her son grew further away. "I accept your game," she yelled into the night, "but don't think I'll lose." In that moment, heavy clouds swirled above her, casting shadows that danced like predators. The forest shivered, as if anticipating a reckoning. This was only the beginning. And from the depths of the night, an answer came, resonating through the woodlands. Then let the seeking begin. What horrors awaited Lila with each turn she would take? As she dialed into the game's dark energy, the very fabric of reality rippled, and she felt the pull of something ancient awakening. Would she dare to finish this cursed game? Or would it lead to her doom? The world spun around Lila, the shadows twisting as she fought against the roots pulling her deeper into the earth. The horror around her felt alive, hungry for her fear. The game board glowed with an unnatural light, drawing her attention back to the night piece she had dropped. It lay on the ground, glinting tantalizingly, as if urging her to return to the unfolding chaos. "Please," she whispered, half to herself, "let this work." With trembling hands, Lila grasped the knight and set it back on the board. Instantly, the game pulsed, the images of the hollow-eyed figures merging into the stars depicted across the surface. They swirled and twisted, and Lila gasped as several pieces pawns, rooks began to rise and dance in the air around her, suspended in some sinister game. "Focus," a voice murmured, although the source was impossible to pinpoint. It echoed around her, bouncing off the trees and fading into whispers, each word piercing her like icicles. "Focus and play." Her heart hammered as she knelt before the board. "What's the first move?" she shouted. The trees shivered, as if awaiting her command. The atmosphere thickened, the shadows drawing closer, crushing her breath. And then, like the snap of a twig, the board responded. The knight, now seemingly alive, danced forward, its movements quicker than her eye could follow. It landed on a square surrounded by darkened pieces. Each piece erupted into shuddering life, the figures of the lost souls rising, forming a barrier. They looked towards her, longing etched on their anguished faces. "Help us!" they cried together, a cacophony of suffering that shot arrows of guilt through her chest. "Set us free!" Lila's mind raced. Were their souls tied to this cursed game? Were they prisoners like Jake, trapped in some twisted limbo? She swallowed thickly, dread curling around her thoughts. "How?" she asked, her voice shaky. "How can I help you?" A shadow within the gathered figures stepped forward. Its face was familiar yet unsettling. It was a twisted image of herself, eyes weeping darkened tears of dread. "You must choose," it rasped. "Your choices bind us, Lila. Choose wisely or lose everything." Fear clawed at Lila's insides. This was not just about the game or finding Jake. There was an unimaginable weight here, interwoven fates trapped in a tapestry of despair. "But what if I choose wrong? Then we all suffer." The figure wailed, and the forest convulsed as though in pain, branches snapping under the strain of anguish. The other figures whimpered, collapsing onto the game board, their spectral forms flickering like dying candles. In a surge of desperation, Lila scanned the ghostly board, the pieces shifting with a mind of their own. They reflected her horror, twisting under the weight of her despair. Suddenly, the knight jumped forward again, pairing with one of the hollow-eyed figures, flinging it onto the board with a thunderous clap. Around her, the world darkened. The ground shook, and the wind shrieked, so painfully loud it drowned her thoughts. "You must play. Time is running out." Lila gripped the knight tightly, the icy metal piercing her flesh. She was running out of time, out of hope. She was tied to the choices the game demanded, and with fear gnawing at her, she took a breath. "Then let the first choice be," she hesitated, "to save him." As she spoke, her voice echoed like a soundless scream, and the ground began to warp around her. Roots tightened, shadowy figures swirled, and the board morphed into an abyss of unknown terrors. The game was far from over. "Choose, Lila. Choose now." Amidst the desperation, what could she sacrifice? What price was worth Jake's freedom? The game had begun, but at what cost? A chill settled in the air as she contemplated the sacrifices ahead. Would the price of her son's life collapse the dark world that threatened to engulf her? Or would her choice unleash something more terrifying? Find the key before it's too late, the sinister voice whispered, trailing into the shadowed abyss, lingering as a threat. What key? And where was freedom hidden now? Lila's pulse quickened as dread crept ever closer. The game was testing her resolve, and she was running out of time. The ground trembled beneath Lila as she knelt by the board. The weight of the choices pressed down on her, chilling her bones. Shadows writhed like hungry serpents, threatening to entrap her further. She could feel the eyes of the lost souls, their suffering etched into every line of their faces. They awaited her next move, but what did the game require? Find the key, the voice echoed, bouncing off the twisted tree branches above her. She clenched the knight, its cold metal burning against her palm, and choked on her fear. What key? She shouted into the chaos. The wind howled, a mournful response swirling around her. Suddenly, as if in answer, the game board shifted under her hands, revealing a glimmer on one of the far edges. A door-shaped outline flickered within the board's surface, pulsing with an intense light. Lila squinted through the swirling shadows and saw it. The key! It was right there, just out of reach. But the board was alive, a creature of treachery, and she knew that grasping blindly could cost her dearly. The twisted version of herself stepped closer to the board, its expression horrified yet resolute. You need to exchange. Sacrifice something of your own, it breathed, the words laced with desperation. Only then will you have the power to unlock it. Lila's heart raced. Sacrifice? What did that mean? Could she really give up something that belonged to her? What if it was her love for Jake, her connection with him? Would that free him, only to trap her in the void? The thought made her sick. The shadows deepened, coiling around her, pulling at her sanity. Time is running out, Lila. The lost souls cried, their voices merging into a discordant choir. You must decide. She glanced at the night, its form flickering with an eerie glow. Was this her chance to rewrite their fates? She hesitated, thoughts swirling like the chaos around her. She had always wanted to be a good mother, always sought to protect Jake from every horror this world could throw at him. But maybe the dark promise of the game could lead to a freedom she never imagined. Do I sacrifice my memories of him? Lila stammered, trembling at the very idea. The figure of herself flinched, anguish reflected back in its hollow eyes. Everything I cherish? The night's light flickered brighter as if the game sensed her turmoil. It's not just memories, the figure rasped, its voice breaking, it's also the bond you share. If you're willing to lose that, the thought clawed at her. Memories of laughter, hugs, the feeling of safety. Could she cast it all away to save him? A mist of despair engulfed her. But what if he forgets me too? She screamed, the anguish spilling from her heart. Sacrifice. The shadows hissed, or the void will swallow you whole. The world around her bent and twisted, pulsating with energy. She felt dizzy as echoes of her past echoed painfully in her mind. Images of Jake laughing, his boyish smile, danced just out of reach. She was torn, a gaping wound ripping deeper within her. Her breath quickened, and in that infinite moment, she understood. This wasn't just a choice, this was the very essence of what it meant to love. Did she risk it all for a chance at freedom, or would she bind herself and Jake forever to the game's malevolent whims? Lila leaned closer to the board, the key flickering like a heartbeat waiting to be unleashed. She grasped the knight, drew in a breath, and felt the shadows constrict their urgency, possessing her to act. Then I choose, her voice trembled, uncertain yet resolute as she readied herself to commit to the sacrifice. But before she could finalize her choice, a deep, thunderous roar erupted from the depths of the board. The ground cracked around her, and all the shadows converged into one dark mass, swirling furiously with energy. The moment slipped away, replaced by a haunting silence, and Lila understood she had only just begun to plunge into horrors beyond her imagination. What if the sacrifice she made unleashed something far worse? What horrors awaited her in the murky depths of this cursed game? The shadows loomed closer, anticipation hanging like a noose around her neck, daring her to take the final step. The shadows pulsed like a living thing, drawing nearer, their whispers turning into a cacophony of despair. Lila's heart thudded in her chest, a prisoner to her choices. The night felt heavier in her grip, almost as if it were pulling her down into the depths of the board itself. The urge to retreat clashed violently with the desperate need to save Jake. Lila. A voice called out, piercing through the chaos, but it wasn't Jake's. It was the twisted reflection of herself, the despair in its hollow eyes mirrored the turmoil whirling within. You cannot hesitate. The longer you wait, the more horror you invite. Lila's breath caught in her throat. Was this really happening? The game had a mind of its own. It could sense her fear, her indecision. The glimmer of the key flickered, like a star drowning in a stormy sky, and Lila knew every moment spent without a choice was a moment lost. She glanced around. The void was restless, shadows snapping at her heels, alive with want. If I give up my memories, will it hurt? Will I even notice? She whispered, warring with the truth that she was clutching. Pain is fleeting, the figure rasped, stepping closer, each movement a grim ritual locked in agony. What you risk now is far more significant than a transient ache. Lila clenched her jaw. I could destroy everything. My family, my love, no. The figure's voice reverberated with psychic force, shaking the ground. If you remain bound to the past, he's doomed. The void craves connection, devours the living tether between you. Think of him. Jake's face flared in her mind, vibrantly alive amidst the shadows, igniting a flicker of hope. Yet, that very hope fed the shadows. She saw it, coiling within their depths, a sinister glee radiating from the board. A cruel game. How many souls had been led to the void by their own sacrifices? Lila's breath quickened, chilling her lungs. What will you take if I choose? An unsettling silence enveloped her. Then, just like that, the board heaved again, twisting with energy. The other version of her chuckled darkly, a sound that clawed at Lila's sanity. That's for you to discover. How far will you go? The game is not just about losing memories, it's about the essence of what you are willing to relinquish to save him. Stop! She screamed, hands trembling. The board vibrated beneath her touch, a mirror reflecting her own terror. I'll do it. I'll sacrifice. The shadows surged forward, howling like hungry wolves. Her heart raced as the vibrations churned into a life of their own. You need to commit. The figures of the lost souls chanted, a twisted serenade penetrating her mind. Fire surged through her veins. I choose. Lila shouted into the void, lifting the night higher, poised to plunge it into the board. But in that very moment, something in the air shifted. A mere breath of hesitation. The pulse inside the board flickered ominously. Not yet. A different, deeper voice hummed, and the shadows whirled back, suddenly still. Lila's stomach dropped. That voice wasn't from the game, it felt ancient, powerful, dripping with malice. What have you done? The twisted reflection hissed, panic flooding its face. Lila's resolve wavered, confusion piercing through her terror. The key dimmed, the glimmer fading. You'll pay a price far worse than memories, unless you act fast. And in that chilling instant, the ground shook violently, and the game's true power revealed itself. Lila stumbled backward, the shadows growing more chaotic, devouring the light. They enveloped her feet, pulling her down, threatening to drown her in darkness. The last thing she felt was a cold grip tightening around her heart. What had she unleashed by hesitating? Would she lose Jake forever, or was something far more sinister lurking in the depths of the cursed game, waiting to consume everything she loved? The echo of her last thought was swallowed by the roar of the shadows. The only certainty left was fear and the terrible unknown that now loomed larger than ever. The shadows roared as Lila felt their cold tendrils snake around her, clenching tighter. Panic kicked in, hot and fierce. She was sinking deeper into the abyss, the blackness clawing at her sanity. Each desperate breath felt like a betrayal, the air thickened, tangy with a sense of impending doom. Lila. The word sliced through the darkness like a knife. It was Jake's voice, laced with urgency and fear, and it flashed brightly in her mind, an anchor amidst the chaos. But could she hold on to that hope while being pulled toward the void? Fight back. She screamed, but her voice trembled, almost swallowed by the cacophony of shadows. They hissed and writhed around her, their whispers darting in and out of her hearing. The memories of home flickered at the edges of her consciousness, family dinners, laughter, the warmth of Jake's hand in hers. All of it felt like sand slipping through her fingers. Let go, the twisted reflection cooed, its voice a haunting lullaby. You long to be free of pain, free of that heavy burden. What burden? She shouted back. You don't understand me. Don't I? It taunted, tilting its head as if to study her. You're haunted by your past, by choices made and those that remain. This game is the only way to free yourself. Choose the night, sacrifice the memories, and save him. The shadows around her pulsed with anticipation, their hunger palpable, sharpened teeth glinting in the dim light. Lila's resolve shifted, thoughts swirling in a tempest. Was she really prepared to lose everything to save Jake? She could feel the weight of the night in her hand, its metal dull but charged, begging for action. Lila, please. Jake's voice grew louder, a beacon fighting against the wave of despair. No. I want to let you take him. She had to act. Alternatively, the darkness would consume him, along with everything she held dear. Lila surged with determination, leading with her heart. Hands trembling, she swung the knight down, but the shadows recoiled as if struck. She hesitated at the last moment, eyes fixed on the gleam of the board. The key flickered weakly in response, and suddenly, the deeper voice returned, resonating through the void. You have not chosen wisely, child. Your hesitation has unleashed consequences unforeseen. With that, shadows spiraled outward, tearing through her skin, deeper than mere physical pain. They reached for her memories, devouring laughter and smiles with each pass. The nightmares spiraled closer, feeding off her fear, as she struggled with the expiration of time. Lila could feel Jake slipping further away, his essence fading like a ghost against the dark. No. Fight, Lila. You have to fight for me. Stop. She cried, desperately battling against the shadows, her strength fading. I never meant for this. I just wanted to save you. But the shadows were relentless, crashing down like waves in a storm, drowning out her pleas. Just then, a flicker of light caught her eye, a flash of silver that sent her heart racing. The key. It was still there, dim but resolute, a reminder that she had the power to break free. A voice echoed in her mind, softer now but still fierce. Remember your love. Take the risk or lose everything. Time slowed. Lila lunged for the key, fingertips brushing against its cool surface. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her, igniting her fighting spirit. I choose love. I choose to fight. As her hand clasped the key, the shadows shrieked, retreating momentarily. Light erupted around her, blinding and fierce, pushing back the darkness that sought to consume her. But in that moment of brightness, one chilling realization tore through her heart: the void was waiting for her next move, ready to twist her choice into an even darker nightmare. Would she plunge into the board with the night, sealing her fate, or could she find another way to save Jake, one that didn't require sacrifice? The shadows writhed around her, and the game's heart pulsed ominously, asking a question that hung heavy in the air: what would you really sacrifice for love? The light enveloped Lila, sending sparks of warmth cascading through her body. For a brief moment, hope surged within her. But the intensity of the shadows still tugged violently at her, desperate to reclaim what they had almost consumed. Each tendril attempted to weave itself back into her being, silencing the flickering courage that had sparked just seconds earlier. Lila felt her heart thudding in her chest, fear gnawing at her resolve. With the key still in her grasp, she took a deep breath, only now noticing the way the darkness swelled and receded, like a beast poised to attack. A faint memory jolted through her, the last time she had played hide-and-seek as a child, the thrill, the fear, the blissful laughter. But now, the game held sinister stakes. Lila. Jake's voice echoed, fading but strong, like a desperate plea in a darkened tunnel. Don't let them win. Fight them. Determination ignited within her as she focused on the key. Was this her ticket out, or just another trap set by the shadows? The young cone loomed. The flicker of light began to pulse with a rhythm, responding to her heartbeat. She understood now, the key wasn't just a tool. It was a choice. The heavy burden she carried could be relinquished. She just had to be willing. The night, the twisted reflection whispered, luring her. Is it not worth the price of your memories? Lila recoiled. No, I can't do that. She took a cautious step back, but the shadows responded, undulating closer. In that moment, each fear she had ever held was thrust into her mind, clawing for dominance, failure, heartbreak, loneliness. Would she trade her memories of warm weekends spent with Jake for a mere chance to save him? She wrestled with the question, feeling tension build. The game asked her to choose. And in that moment, a desperate coldness gripped her heart. If she chose wrong, it wouldn't simply mean failure. It would mean losing herself, and Jake. I choose. The shadows danced, watching with malevolent anticipation as her voice trembled. The night's blade caught the light, flashing dangerously, reminding her of every bittersweet moment with Jake, the feel of his laughter against her skin, the warmth in their shared dreams. The darkness hissed, eager, insistent. Choose. It demanded. Or lose it all. Not yet. Lila shouted, a surge of defiance spiraling through her. With fierce intent, she turned to the key. If she used it, she might find a way to reclaim what the darkness had stolen without succumbing. A single swing. The shadows thickened, mocking her defiance, but she was done with their torment. She tightened her grip on the key and thrust it toward the heart of the game, the board. Unlock this nightmarish game. She cried, a sound of desperation giving strength to her words. The shadows recoiled, their howls ricocheting off the walls of her mind. Suddenly, the ground beneath her shook. A crack split the board, emitting an otherworldly light that sent waves of warmth through her soul. In that moment of chaos, Lila saw flashes of her future, a lifetime with Jake, laughter filling spaces now haunted by despair. But then, the shadows surged in protest, growing larger, angrier. She felt the terrifying weight of time slipping away as the shadows charged towards her, eager to reclaim their prize. Panic gripped Lila, and with a deep breath, she plunged the key down forcefully. But in the instant of impact, the world turned black and white. Everything froze as Lila realized the true cost of her decision. What have you unleashed? The voice of the shadows trembled with rage, vibrating through the air, as tiny fissures of light began to flare around her. She had gambled. And now, she was trapped between choices, caught in the liminal space of what could have been and what would always haunt her. Lila's eyes darted desperately for Jake, but even as she sought him, the darkness twisted and wrapped his silhouette. Lila. I'm here. But was he really? With the void expanding around them, the question loomed, how far would she go to untangle them from this web of shadows? The game had only just begun. A violent shudder ran through Lila's body. The crack in the board emitted a blinding light that flickered ominously, casting shadows that twisted into grotesque shapes on the walls. She could feel the pulse of the darkness tightening around her, wrapping her tighter than a snake ready to strike. Jake's silhouette wavered, momentarily swallowed by the night, only to re-emerge more distorted, like an illusion struggling against the nightmarish landscape. Lila. Don't let go of the key. Jake's voice cut through the haze, desperation dripping from each word. She clenched the key tighter, feeling its cold metal bite into her skin. We can still get out of here. But around them, the shadows roared, swirling like a tempest, eager to consume their light. Each gust of cold air felt like fingers brushing against her skin, whispering threats that crept into her mind. You will lose him. You will let him go. No. I won T. She breathed heavily, panting against the pressure building in her chest. The shadows were rising, forming a wall, advancing like a tide that refused to recede. The warmth she had felt moments before was fading, replaced by a suffocating chill that numbed her limbs. She turned back to Jake, searching his face for reassurance, but found only anguish mirrored in his eyes. Choose, Lila. You can't hesitate now. The board continued to crack, and with each shudder, she felt herself being pulled into the darkness, into the decisions and regrets she had buried. Lila thought of all the times she had held on, times that now carried the weight of change she couldn't shake. Would giving up everything change the outcome? Could she really sacrifice her memories, the ones that kept her afloat? Panic seized her. What if I can't remember you? The shadows hesitated, as if her words had momentarily unsettled them, and Lila seized the precious moment, clenching the key and raising it high. Let us go. She took a step forward, channeling the light that flickered within the key. The shadows recoiled again, as though scalded by the light. You can't have us. For a split second, the world shifted. Above her, a faint glimmer of hope flickered, reflecting the fight inside her. But suddenly, the darkness lashed back. Tendrils snaked out, wrapping around her wrist like icy flames, pulling her back into the despair. No! She screamed, her heart racing. The key felt heavier, the weight of it pressing down harder on her spirit. I choose to remember. I choose to fight. With a fierce cry, Lila swung the key against the board. There was a deafening crash, and the lights rounded in a halo of pure energy. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of rage that echoed within her skull. But then, as if the world had turned sideways, the board shattered, and everything plunged into dark silence. She landed on her back, breathless, the remnants of her surroundings swirling like temporal dust. There was no longer a board, no walls of pervasive shadows. Just an endless void. Jake! She called desperately, fear slicing through her heart. Here. His voice echoed back, bouncing around the emptiness but frustratingly distant. She pushed herself up, looking around. The light had disappeared, plunging her back into a suffocating darkness. Was Jake even still there? And then, from that void, shapes began to form, familiar yet twisted memories she thought she could hold on to, but they morphed into grotesque creatures that mirrored her worst fears. The laughter that once enshrouded their past now turned into sounds of agony and despair. Lila. Jake's strained voice echoed louder, fear mingled with determination. Don't let them take you. Don't forget. Remember. But as the shadows leapt toward her, a chilling realization clawed at her heart. What had she truly unleashed? Now, alone in the dark, the question clawed at her mind. Could memories bind them, or would they become chains that pulled them deeper into the abyss? The shadows tapped at the corners of her consciousness, eager, waiting for her next move. Lila. And the darkness stretched, whispering promises, beckoning her to see what lay beyond the fading light. Was she ready to uncover the truth? What choice would she make when all seemed lost? Lila's heart pounded as she stood, suspended in the suffocating void. Shadows swirled around her, their whispers clawing at her mind as they teased her fears. Each flicker of memory threatened to ensnare her, luring her with the promise of familiarity but twisting it into something horrifying. Don't let them take you. Fight. Jake, his voice a lifeline, broke through the darkness. She could almost see him, the faint outline of hope flickered just beyond her grasp. She had to remember him. She had to. Memories flooded her mind, warm and vibrant, each one like a spark of light. The feeling of Jake's small hand in hers, the echo of his laughter, the way he'd smile with pure joy. Each recollection was a thread, weaving her back into reality. "Jake!" she croaked, reaching through the haze towards that voice. But the shadows surged, angry and relentless. "Let go, Lila. Let it all go." They hissed, twisting into monstrous shapes, their eyes glinting with malicious hunger. Lila stumbled back, heart racing, the weight of their terror threatening to drag her down. But deep within her, a fire ignited. "No!" she shouted, defiance sizzling in her veins. "You don't own me." The shadows recoiled slightly. Her conviction was a shield, and she grasped it tightly. "I remember the love. I remember Jake." With that declaration, she drew upon the warmth of those memories, focusing all her energy into the light of the key she still grasped. The key responded, shimmering brightly, pulsating with power. "Unlock the bonds of the past," it urged, vibrating with the promise of freedom. Lila took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment as she visualized Jake safe and sound. She felt that bond thrumming in sync with the key, a tether spun of love and hope. Together. She screamed into the abyss, plunging the key toward the darkness. Light exploded from its surface, and the shadows snarled, retreating as the brilliance illuminated the void. Lila felt the cold tendrils unravel from her limbs, and she surged forward, summoning everything she had left. The shadows erupted, their forms collapsing into wisps of smoke as the light surged. "What have you done?" they shrieked in unison, their voices a chorus of fury and despair. But she wouldn't stop. She wouldn't falter. "I've chosen love," Lila cried, her voice steady and unwavering. The ground shook as the shadows dissolved into nothingness, swallowed by the purifying glow. "I choose us." As the darkness evaporated, a flash illuminated everything around her. And in that moment, Lila saw it clearly. Jake stood before her, radiant and glowing, life shining within him. "Mom!" His joy echoed through her, wrapping around them both like a warm embrace. The darkness faded into a soft hue, the lingering tendrils vanished completely, leaving an ethereal twilight behind. "You found me. I thought I lost you forever." Lila rushed forward, collapsing into him as he enveloped her in a hug. "I thought I lost you too." Tears streamed down her face, relief washing over her like a cleansing tide. But as they held each other, she felt the remnants of that darkness echo in her chest, a reminder that the shadows might always linger at the fringe of their world. "We can't forget," she whispered, pulling back to look deeply into his eyes. "We need to keep our memories safe." "I know," Jake replied, his gaze serious yet filled with warmth. "Together, we'll always remember our love." Hand in hand, they began to walk back through the ethereal twilight, guided by the warmth of their bond, no longer fearing the horrors that once held them prisoner. They had faced darkness and emerged stronger, together. As they reached the threshold back to their world, the last remnants of shadows flickered, fading into a ghostly whisper. "You may have won this time," but Lila didn't need to look back. She knew darkness could never truly extinguish the light if they chose to remember it together. In that moment of solidarity, hidden deep within the heart of that cursed game, they found their truth. No darkness could extinguish the power of love, the resilience to fight against despair, and the strength to carve out a future free of fear. They stepped back into their world, the shadows behind them, fading with each step, and laughter filled the air again, once darkened by terror, now vibrant with joy. The warmth of a new beginning wrapped around them as they walked into the sunlight. And though the game was over, the bonds they forged would never shatter. They had become more than survivors, they were victors of their own story, ready to embrace whatever came next. As they reached their home, the door creaked open, welcoming and familiar, ready to hold new memories. The laughter of their loved ones filled the air as they stepped inside, marking the end of one story and the beginning of a brighter chapter. Now, as this journey wraps up, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.